So, guys, we all know I'm a Pan-Africanist, but I've been here thinking and deliberating about the US's relationship with the African continent, and I wanted to ask you, the viewers of our channels, Connect Africa, Africa Reimagined, is the United States a necessary evil that the African continent and the African countries cannot live without? Is it necessary that we must always give in to the dictates of the United States and its allies? Of course, that is the West, Europe, including Europe. Because these are countries which have caused so much harm to the African continent, a lot of destruction. And of course, on one hand, also, other people can say there's benefits that we gain from them. Of course, on my side, I don't see them. But of course, people would say that we gain in form of technology, these technologies which we use. If the West cut off our internet, we would not survive as Africans. We would not have any other means of communication. But there's Russia, there's China. And of course, on their side, they will claim that they give Africa aid, of course, which we all know that aid is not forthcoming. It's not really aid that is given to Africa, but rather it is a bait which is just used to steal from Africa. It is rather Africa which is giving aid to everyone. But of course, this false narrative persists and continues to be pushed around the world. Now, this is where we are asking a question. Is the West, is the United States and the West a group of necessary evil? Are they a necessary evil that Africa must live with amidst all this pain that they have caused to the African continent and the African people? And of course, we can talk of the slavery and the renaming of our people when they took them to the United States and over the Atlantic. They went from being Africans. Now they have infused in their minds a lot of confusion, from being Africans to being African Americans to being Black Americans to being... So all of a sudden, these guys have stopped being Africans. Now they're something else, and they are evolving into something which we don't even understand up to now. Fundamentally Black Americans and all these kind of things. This is one of the harms which were caused. Now, Europe again came and divided the African continent after the failure of slavery. And we are facing these problems. And the wars, they have continued to spread wars on the African continent and even finance these wars because they want to benefit from the oil and the resources and the gold and the diamonds. Now, these are the harms which the West has caused the African continent. And after defeating this colonialism which they brought, slavery, colonialism, our leaders organized themselves to start rebuilding the African continent. And the same West came about and killed a lot of these leaders on the African continent. We can talk of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, we can talk of Olympio, we can talk of, Patrice Lumumba in broad daylight, Even today we have the receipts, we have the documents, we have the CIA documents, the Department of Intelligence Agency. They killed our leaders, the good leaders, the Marshall and all these great leaders, the Robert Sobukwes, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X. They cannot deny because we have the receipts right now. Now we have the receipts. Documents have been declassified. Now, I'm tempted to ask this question because we as Africans, and whatever you like to call it, African Americans, we know these facts because the documents have been declassified. Now, this is the reason why I'm asking, is it a necessary evil? Are they a necessary evil that we must live with perpetually, even though we know that organizations like the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the FBI have caused so much harm on the African people and people of African descent? Is it necessary that we must continue to accommodate them? We must live with them. Are they a necessary evil on the side of Africans that we must continue to accommodate them? This is a question which requires an answer, an honest answer from each of us as Africans. We know that the United States and the West, they are planting fake leaders on the African continent. They are forcing fake leaders on the African continent because after the defeat of the African nationalists of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you remember that the same period in which they killed the Nkrumahs, they killed the Patrice Lumumbas, the same period in which they killed the Malcolm X's and Dr. King, there was a deliberate attack on the African world and, of course, people of African descent. They succeeded in taking over the political system on the African continent. They succeeded in molding Africa into a political system which they desired, followed by economic system. And those are the systems which are persisting today on the African continent. That is why we cannot see any sane leaders who come about and say Africans must own their resources. They are always saying that it is the private sector. They are saying it is the private sector. It's foreign direct investment. And yet, the so-called private sector on the African continent has come to mean Western money and Western corporations taking over our continent, our resources, our assets. Or other groups, Western corporations or other groups they are in concert with, whether those groups are from Asia or anywhere else, whether it is Singapore or somewhere else. As long as those groups are not Africans, whether it is Indians, but as long as those groups are not African, that is what the private sector has come to symbolize on the African continent. Now, those leaders who showed us the right way to live, the right way to reconstruct our continent were removed. And those who are existent on the continent today, this is the narrative they are peddling. Even though some of them know that this narrative is false, is not taking the continent anywhere. It has not taken the continent, the African continent, anywhere for the last 60 years after independence. So then, knowing this, is this necessary or is this enough for us to organize against imperialism and the West and declare it an eternal enemy of the African continent, an original enemy of the African continent? Is this enough evidence for us to declare an all-out war against the declared enemy of the African people, who is the West, who is the United States and the West. And if it is not enough, what else should we do? Who is the enemy of the African continent? If it is enough and we are not organizing against them, what then is the problem? Why are we not organizing against this declared enemy of the African people, who we all know very well? And that is why I asked the question, is the US a necessary evil? Is the West a necessary evil that we must live with as Africans? These are just my questions. My name is Kwame Gonza. It's up to you to give the answers which you think they are right for this very important question of our time. And from there, what you say is what we will all congregate around to act on. Put that in the comment section. Put your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think? Is this a necessary evil that we must live with? And do we have enough evidence? If this is not a necessary evil that we must live with, do we have enough evidence? Or do you think we have enough evidence to organize an all-out war against this imperialism, neocolonialism, and all its representatives on the African continent? Put that in the comment section, and I will read every comment and answer to it. I want to see what you people in the African world are saying about this important subject. Thank you very much. My name is Kwame Gonza, and I'll talk to you later. Peace and God bless you.